are we in December already? We're in December. Welcome to a Monday, after Week 13. Look ahead to how do we do this already Week 14 edition of Inside Coverage on Yahoo. Hi there, my name is Andrew Siciliano. This is the how and the why, any and everything you need to know about the National Football League as we sit here with, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 weeks to go. 14, 15, 16, 5 weeks to go. I did just count with my fingers. Don't think less of me. We are going to overreact on this show because generally speaking, that's what shows on Monday do. However, C-Rob and Frank, gentlemen, great to see you both. Hope you had a great holiday. Hope there was no passive-aggressive, typical Thanksgiving dinner for either of you guys at your table. We're not going to overreact to the fact that I pretty much gave you every single upset on Thursday on last week's Week 13 preview, partly because my camera was awful. You might not have actually seen me or heard me do it, but we're not going to point out the fact, C-Rob, well, you weren't on the show. Frank, that I nailed. Actually, neither of you were on the show last Wednesday, so it doesn't matter. I nailed every single upset last week.
So did I.
What are lottery numbers?
I hit them all in my living room. There was no one here to witness it, but I did it. I had the 12-team parlay that everyone missed.
Exactly. I'll just say this, that I think we learned in Week 13 that there's no good teams. There are no teams. And we'll talk about this. We're not going to be looking back on this season like, whoa, remember the 2025 Bills? Like, no. This is just going to be someone's going to win a Super Bowl because the rules dictate somebody has to win a Super Bowl. They'll
be able to hang the banner, and they're going to get a ring, and they're going to be holding the Lombardi, so who cares? Right? Very
true. 100% true. But I'm just saying, like, this is one of those weird seasons where just there's no team that wants to be great. And it's just going to be – there's going to be a weird champion this year, I think. It's just going to be one of those, like, some team with the 6th seed gets hot for a month. It is a very weird NFL season.
Who is the last team like this? Like, let's think about this. Who's the last Super Bowl team, the last Super Bowl winner?
You know what? Honestly, it might be the 2020 Bucks. It might be the 2020 Bucks because if you remember, the Buccaneers were not good. But we forget, Brady. Like we have this. COVID. Yeah, right. That's the thing. But we have this thing where we retroactively remember all champions as being great. Right. But that Buccaneers team was not good until December.
It's like the Lakers mediocre. Bubble team, right? The Lakers won the title with LeBron in the bubble, and we look back, and we're like, maybe that wasn't as legit as maybe we thought it would be.
Okay, so this is a really good one because I've had an argument about that 2020 season. There are some people that want to throw it out the window. The NFL season, that is. Oh, it wasn't in front of fans. What does it really matter? No, it matters. The Buccaneers in their home building, by the way, won a Super Bowl, and nobody cares if it was or wasn't COVID. I think the NBA bubble championship is totally viewed differently in the NBA. You went to Disneyland and you played a bunch of games where you walked down from your hotel room and yeah, to me that
if any other team had won the NBA bubble title, it'd be fine. But since people like poo-pooing on LeBron's legacy to protect Jordan, that's why we hate that bubble title. Like that's the only reason. I know this is an NBA show, but that's the reason. It was because it's LeBron and people like just.
You don't think
LeBron.
People crap on Tom Brady's legacy at times? Come on, we've all heard the argument about, anymore. If this had happened or if that had happened, and most of them were.
But no one takes that Super Bowl.
They cheated.
By the way, do you know how many Pro Bowlers the 2020 Buccaneers had?
Oh, it was few.
We think Pro Bowlers are significant these days?
Was it zero?
Like, does that matter?
Pro Bowler. Do you know who it was too? And it was Jason Pierre-Paul. Yeah, it was JPP.
Right. I knew it was.
That was they didn't win their division. They weren't good until December. It's great. Tom Brady's awesome. Gronkowski and Antonio Brown.
Tyler
a lot of great players on that team.
Quarterback,
but that was a weird team.
Mitch Trubisky's been a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Sure.
We're going to do this. We're going to name all the Pro Bowlers who never should have been Pro Bowlers.
The reason it comes up is because the Browns obviously have not won in Pittsburgh in 20 years, regular season. But I point out that the most important Browns-Steelers game in Pittsburgh was the 2020 playoff game, but the Browns clean their clock. And sometimes people push back and go, oh, that didn't count. There were no fans. I don't care that there weren't fans. It was the Browns and the Steelers. It was in Pittsburgh. It was the most important meeting between these two teams in the last 20 years, other than the 0-2 game where the Steelers beat them in Pittsburgh as well in the postseason, and they won that game. Don't take that game away from me. That game counted. I don't care if no fans were there. Obviously, there were fans at Raymond James for the Super Bowl. Bucs won. We can agree on that, right? Bucs still won. It's not going to be like the NCAA vacating
I'm just
victories.
Saying it wasn't a great champion, and that's what we're going to get this year. We're going to get a team that wins and probably gets hot at the end, but not somebody who we're like, man, do you remember that, whatever, the 1996 Packers? Like, it's not going to be like that. Like, it's going to be kind of a random champion.
What about the Nick Foles Philly team that beat New England to win the titles?
They were really, really good. They were going towards that number one seed. Carson Wentz was going to win MVP, all that kind of stuff. That was a really good team. I'd have to go back and think, but the Buccaneers didn't even win their division that year. Saints won the division. I mean, I just see this season playing out that way.
So let's transition now, because I actually do think that we still do have a very, very good team, and that team is the Rams. You're allowed to stumble every now and then and lose. So let's open the show with what do we think of the Rams going on the road to Carolina and falling 31-28 to the upstart Bryce Young Panthers. 2 weeks ago, the Panthers had Bryce Young throw for 448 yards, and then they go to then they go to San Francisco on Monday night, and they lose, and they don't look good. They pick off Brock Purdy 3 times, but they can't capitalize. They can't get the offense going. Bryce gets picked off in the end zone early, and you're like, I don't believe in him anymore. Not at all. But now they come home on the short week after a red-eye Monday night, and they beat the team that all of us agreed, I think we agreed, I know I felt this way, was the best team in football. I'll start with you, Charles, say the Rams are no longer the best team in football because they lose a game in the Eastern time zone at 1 o'clock against a scrappy Carolina team that, hey, they went into Lambeau, beat the Packers. It's not as if they're a bunch of bums here. Or do you maybe take what Frank is saying by saying, they're no good teams, and this weekend proved it?
How come we're not even factoring in the Panthers into this equation?
That's my point.
I mean, the Panthers,
they're a scrappy bunch.
They are. The Panthers
they lost to the Saints at home 3 weeks ago.
Okay, which is fine. Look,
they beat the Packers.
They're a mercurial team, right?
They're weird.
From
they're really weird.
1 week, exactly. Okay, weird, mercurial, however you want to frame it. The Panthers are interesting, right? Because it's a team that from 1 week to the next, we're not entirely sure what kind of performance we're going to see from the Carolina Panthers. Now, I've been through there the last couple of off seasons, spent some time with Dan Morgan, the general manager there. And, his thought process was like, look, we want to build this in a very boring, fundamental way. We want to do it through the draft. Yes, we've, had sort of this schizophrenic nature with the quarterback spot where it's been this constant mandate to rush and figure out quarterback. And if we got to change the quarterback this season, fine. And then next season, fine. And then next season, fine. Well, they finally calmed that aspect of their personality. And frankly, I think the aspect of David Tepper, the owner, his personality, which is, unless we have what we think is the Super Bowl quarterback now, we'll just keep swapping these guys out at whatever the cost is, whatever the asset cost is, whatever the financial cost is. We'll keep doing that damage. This year? We have not. That's a great point, Andrew. And it was interesting. The last time I spent some time with Dan Morgan, he said, look, I truly feel like everyone in the organization, whether you want to talk about the owner, all the way down to our last game day manager, the people holding the water bottles. He said, I actually think people have finally settled into getting it, understanding that it's going to have to take some patience, that we're going to have to build defensively, that if we want to have a good running game, we don't just address it by going and drafting Jonathan Brooks in the second round of the draft, who, by the way, in the 2024 draft, has really not even seen the field for the Carolina Panthers because of injuries, and yet they go get Rico Dowdle, right? They take Chuba Hubbard and say, look, he's got a skill set. If we have to feed it to him 30 times a game to have a run game, we will do that. They've committed to certain aspects of how to build this organization. They go out and they take Tet McMillan, which, at the time, I think some teams really like Tet McMillan. Others, I remember there was a snippet of video where Tet said, I don't know if I really like to practice. And, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, I don't know if I watch game film. I don't like watching game film. Again, paraphrasing. I think some teams are like, I don't know if I want that guy, to be my first round draft pick at wide receiver. And yet look at what Tet's been able to do on the field this year for the Carolina Panthers. Derek Brown, I think, is quietly one of the best defensive players in football. People don't even talk about him.
Huge game Sunday.
Yeah, huge. A lot of really good fundamental things to like about the Carolina Panthers. They just get ignored, I think, because of the noise of the last few years. To me, this feels like a team in 2026 that is really going to settle into being a very good NFL football team and is finding their way from one week to the next this year, figuring out how to be consistent.
I think the Panthers kind of sum up this whole NFL season. I mean, just think about their past few weeks.
Yeah.
Go on the road to Lambeau Field and beat the Packers. You're like, whoa, here are the Panthers. Come home, lose to the Saints at home. Oh, 17-7, if I remember the score right. You're like, ugh. They go to Atlanta, and Bryce, like you said, puts up 400-something. You're like, whoa, here come the Panthers. If you watched that Monday night game against the 49ers, you had to think, this Panthers team is one of the worst teams in the NFL. They were awful in that game. Absolutely awful. So what did they do for an encore? They come home and beat the Rams. Like, what sense can you make of that pattern?
They picked off Purdy 3 times. Come on. Worst team in the NFL?
And they lost, and they got blown out, picking off Brock Purdy 3 times in the first half. They were terrible in that game. Absolutely incompetent. And I was like, oh, this Panthers team is just falling by the wayside. And then they come back and beat the Rams. Like, how do you reconcile all this? The team that lost at home to the Saints beats the Rams at home? Like, I don't get it. I'll say this. Given that this NFL season is so topsy-turvy, as somebody who spends hours every Monday ranking football teams, I'm keeping the Rams at number 1, because when you start looking down the list, every team has had a bad performance or look bad at times, or
that's fair.
You just have questions about them. You think about the Seahawks have a real good argument to be the number 1 team of football. That team lost to the Rams 2 weeks ago. So, okay, that happened. That matters. The Broncos couldn't put away Marcus Mariota and the Commanders on Sunday night. They did win. Nick Bonito, very good play. But you're like, every week we're sitting here like, Broncos are good, but you look at the Patriots, great record, easiest schedule in football. The Packers, they've had their tough losses, including the Panthers at home. I mean, you just go on and on down the list and you say, well, everybody's had bad performances. The Rams at least have had some good performances to go with it, where you do say, yeah, this looks like the best team in football because Stafford's at an MVP level. Their receivers are unbelievable. Defense is really good. McVay's a genius. So I kept the Rams number 1, but really thinking like, this is the most wide open I can remember it, where I'm just like, there's no favorite. There's no team that I would pick right now to win the Super Bowl with any confidence whatsoever.
Yeah, I think all of the above is kind of true. I truly do think the Carolina's a scrappy bunch that could find a way in. They still have the Bucs twice, guys. Carolina gets a bye, then they get New Orleans. So that's a nice next 2 weeks. Then they get the Bucs. That game is at home. Then they get Seattle. That could be a Saturday game, one of the flexed into Saturday games. And then they get Tampa on the road to close. It is in front of them. They have a path into the postseason. And the Rams are still the best team in football. Give them some grace. They went on the road and they lost. Carolina played a good game. Matthew Stafford is all of a sudden human again. He threw a couple of interceptions, one of which went for a long pick 6. If you cut him, yes, he does bleed. He will bounce back, and they will bounce back, and they will go to Arizona and beat Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals this coming week, because Jonathan Gannon said today that the 21-day window is not yet going to be opened for Kyler Murray. In his words, he's just not there yet. They get Detroit, Seattle, Atlanta, Arizona, Week 18 to close it. I, for my money, agree with you, Frank. Yeah, they are still the best team in the NFL, and I think they're still the best team in the NFC. They're allowed to go to the East Coast and lose every now and then. However, the team right now in the number 1 seed, Frank Schwab, in the National Football Conference is none other than the Bears of Chicago, who on Black Friday made the Eagles black and blue. They bullied the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know I brought this game up a couple of times in the past. I could not stop thinking of the game last year on a Sunday night in early December, I think, when the Eagles went to L.A. and they bullied the Rams on NBC on SNF. Saquon had 200 yards. He could have had 400 yards. They bullied the Rams up and down the field. That is what the Bears did to the Eagles. They pushed them up and down the field. They ran for 200 and whatever. Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift up and down the field. That Bears offensive line put Jordan Davis, put Jalen Carter, and put Vic Fangio on skates. And you know what? You can laugh at their record, and you can listen. You can listen to Ben Johnson when he says our passing game is not there. We're winning in spite of our passing game. That is a rookie head coach who's telling his quarterback, you're not good enough yet. We're pulling you. You need to be helping to pull us. But come January, you get them in cold weather or warm weather. Guess what? Frank, they're going to run right through you. And you better get on the bandwagon, buddy. Because the Bears have the 1 seed in the NFC.
The Bears have the 1 seed in the NFC after one quality win. But what I said, look, Bears fans,
it's December,
Bears fans love
he couldn't resist.
They do, though. That's true. Well, Bears fans love me because a couple of weeks ago I called them frauds. And was I over the top? Yes. But mostly I was saying this team is not as good as its record. But the good part about having a team like that is you're collecting these wins, close wins against bad teams, while you figure things out and you get better. And the team we saw on Friday was really, really good. Like, there's no mistaking that. That was a team that can run the ball as well as anybody. They're second in the NFL right now in rushing yards, fifth, I believe, in average yards per carry. Basically doing it without a lot from the quarterback position. You know, you see the number 1, number 2 rushing teams in the NFL. So a lot of times it's Lamar Jackson because he's adding so much. Caleb has 303 rushing yards, doing fine in that category. But it's mostly DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai. They have figured out those two guys can really run it down your throat. The defense is getting healthier. I think Caleb is making plays. Like he put the game on ice with that touchdown to Cole Kmet on Friday. They were the better team than the Eagles. There's just no question about that. Now, when I said a couple weeks ago that they were frauds, a little over the top, I get that. It was based on the fact that they hadn't beaten anybody. They weren't even blowing out bad teams or barely beating bad teams like the Raiders and the Giants and all them. But now it's kind of like, who cares? You collected all those wins. And now you're a better football team than you were a couple weeks ago because now you have that quality win. Now we see the way you want to play. Your identity is we're going to line up and run it for 289 yards against one of the better defenses in the NFL and the Eagles. So credit to the Bears. You're not frauds. I don't know necessarily that you're the best team in the NFC, but it doesn't even matter. You beat the Eagles. You legitimize this start. And good things are happening in Chicago. This is Ben Johnson's rookie year. Like he might win Coach of the Year this year because that's a formula for that. And this team is getting better, and they're doing things that you want to see when the weather's really, really bad. Nobody wants to go into Soldier Field in January, play a team that can rush for 250 yards on you. That's a big advantage for them. Hats off to the Bears. You're not frauds. Bears fans, you can leave me alone.
There
please,
you go.
Maybe.
Now, see, Rob, we should sell T-shirts. Congratulations, Bears. You're not frauds.
Yes. You're not
now,
frauds.
Listen, if I was a savage, I would say, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield my time to the gentleman in Denver and let him take this time slot to continue to apologize for what he did in slighting the Chicago Bears, which has brought him nothing but venom. I am shocked in some ways that A, Frank showed up today, and B, that the cave that he's in has Wi-Fi. I mean, look, we have the picture of Ben Johnson taking the lid off, you know, showing the before picture of the before and after P90X video. You know,
is he the dude in those Tai Chi ads I get on YouTube?
Oh, it's amazing. The Bears are feeling themselves. We'll get to Ben Johnson a little bit later in the show, but here's the only thing about the Bears. I love everything that's going on there right now. I think absolutely Ben Johnson's been everything that they hoped he would be. I myself questioned what kind of fit he would be with Caleb Williams, given the quarterback he had worked with in Detroit and Jared Goff, who was very, very different in terms of the types of decisions, his ability to quickly analyze what he sees in front of him, make a decision, get rid of the football, get the ball out fast, not work off of script. Caleb Williams, a totally different quarterback than that. I give the Bears credit. I give Ben Johnson all the credit in the world for adjusting on the fly and learning together, and Caleb Williams taking these steps forward. The only thing that makes me nervous about the Bears being the number 1 seed in the NFC, when I watch the Bears, from one week to the next, there's so many mouths to feed here, which is often a very, very good problem to have, right? So in the backfield, you have DeAndre Swift, you have Kyle Monangai. Now you have Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland at tight end. The wide receivers, you have DJ Moore, you have Rome Odunze. You have I'm leaving somebody out here right now.
Burden.
I can't even think. Luther Burden,
who's
right?
Really
Luther Burden, right?
Yeah, he's emerging.
Right.
He's a good player.
The multi-talented guy, right? That they use in a lot of different ways: run game, pass game. At some point down the stretch, I want to see the Bears develop a hierarchy there where there is a go-to player. I don't know who the go-to player is right now for the Bears. So when Ben Johnson comes over from the Detroit Lions, it was Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? You knew Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they had that kind of relationship where it was like, hey, we're going to go for it on fourth down constantly. We're going to look for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is going to be option 1A, B, and C when we're in a fourth down situation and we need a play to be made. I don't know who that necessarily is right now for the Chicago Bears. And the thing that bothers me about it is because I think Rome Odunze is one of the most underutilized assets in the NFL today. I think Rome Odunze is a great player. I think the first 4 weeks of the season, he showed the kind of talent he could be in year 2 in his career. And yet there have been a number of games most recently where I'm like, what has happened to this guy? Whereas, and he's getting balls thrown in his direction that are often not catchable. Right? It does not seem to be the amount of chemistry I would have thought at this point between Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. And if it's not Rome, if it's someone else, if it's DJ Moore, fine. That's fine if it's DJ Moore. I think they need to work in December to figure out when we get into these playoff games and we're in situations where it's third and long or it's fourth down and we need a play to be made. We know this player, this guy, he is Caleb Williams' weapon, who he can trust in absolution on this given play, the way that Ben Johnson had it in Detroit between Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that's really important for the Bears down the stretch, and I think that's what December has to be about, starting to fine-tune how you're going to win games in January and beyond.
Maybe they could fine-tune that by going to Green Bay and beating the Packers coming up in the 4 o'clock window, Week 14. The Packers, who swept the Lions. They swept the Lions. And that is how Thanksgiving opened. As you smelled the turkey wafting from upstairs, pouring that first beer, thinking of falling asleep on the couch later, to Joe Burrow beating the Ravens. Speaking of turkey, man, let's give Melissa Stark a medal, because she had to ask those Bengals players like 10 times, how's the turkey? And they did not want to answer. You could see the looks on their faces, right? Guys, how's the turkey? And they're like,
It's never been good.
How's the turkey? Anyway, yeah. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers has played 280, roughly, NFL games, including the postseason. What if I told you he probably only has 5 more left? What went down in Pittsburgh yesterday and what to make of it on Inside Coverage on Yahoo. It's Inside Coverage on Yahoo. So yesterday I leave Browns and Niners, go back to my hotel room, change, and then meet some friends, Cam Wolf included, from NFL Network, and we go out and get a meal in Cleveland. We turn on the Bills and the Steelers. And early on, you're like back and forth. Josh Allen turning the ball over. We got fumbles. What's happened in this game? All right, it's in Pittsburgh. They're going to win. And then by the time your food comes, you have your first drink, you look up and you're like, wow, is that Aaron Rodgers down on the ground bleeding? And wow, wait a minute, this game's over? Wow, they're just getting snowplowed in their own building, and now they're booing, and now they're yelling, fire Tomlin and Acrisure. What the heck happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers? The final score of this game is 26-7. The Bills beat the Steelers to drop them to 6-6. And I'm sorry, guys, watching this, I just thought once and for all, this is over in Pittsburgh. I'm not saying Tomlin's going to get fired. I'm not saying Tomlin's going to want to leave. I'm not saying that they're going to have to blow the entire thing up. But I do think it's over for Aaron Rodgers, and I think he has 5 games left in his NFL career. After the game, a game in which he aggravated the injury to his left wrist, a game in which he maybe broke his nose and he had blood streaming down his face afterwards. This is Rodgers on the podium.
When there's film sessions, everybody shows up. And when I check to a route, you do the right route. You know, like John and I just weren't on the same page. I checked to his in-breaker and he ran out-breaker. You know, John is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that. But, you know, I threw a ball I thought was going to get hit by the wind, and it was 4 yards over Roman. So I got to make that throw. But, you know, we have our meetings every week. We have other opportunities outside of the facility, and look forward to seeing all the boys there.
All right. Thank you. Passive aggressive. Much. Jonnu being Jonnu Smith, the veteran tight end, Arthur Smith favorite, who was picked up in the offseason, and he is there now as one of the Steelers' 19 tight ends. Aaron Rodgers doing the old, hey, Mike Williams, know where the red line is routine that we saw in New York with the Jets. It's not just Aaron Rodgers' fault, let's be clear. Even though they can't stretch the field, even though the offense is predictable, even though the offense is nothing but, hey, let's get Spencer Anderson and Darnell Washington out there and try to run it. If it doesn't work, we'll throw to Jaylen Warren in the flat. That's all the offense is seemingly right now. The defense is bad, guys. They have $160 million devoted to that defense, and that defense gave up 250 yards on the ground, and the Bills telegraphed what they were doing. TJ Watt said afterwards, I have never seen one team run one play so many times, and we couldn't do anything about it. Duo left, duo right, zone left, zone right. They punched the Steelers in the mouth. Charles, where do they go next?
Well, this is the Jonnu Smith thing. It's interesting to me because I listened to the sound on tape multiple times, and I'm like, is he saying Jonnu showed up or didn't show up? Like he showed up and just didn't know the adjustment, or he didn't show up and that's why he didn't know the adjustment. It's weird to me that he invokes this film session, but seems to say, hey, everybody showed up and yet we still ran the wrong route. As you said, Mike Williams from the New York Jets 2024 squad is sitting there going, this feels familiar. And, Jermichael Finley from the Green Bay Packers and Greg Jennings. And if the number of teammates that Aaron Rodgers at some point has criticized or between the lines criticized was a list, it would be longer than that Cleveland Browns quarterback jersey, which just keeps pinning names to the back of the quarterback jersey.
Had to bring that up, huh, buddy?
It is. Listen, I'm just saying it is a nonstop. There are a lot of guys that over the years Aaron Rodgers has criticized, and you can put Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, on there from the Green Bay Packers, Mike McCarthy, the head coach from the Green Bay Packers days, on there. It is an absolute endless list. This is a person who is fading into the end of his career. Things are not working. Nothing is unfolding the way that he thought. Really, you can go ahead and go back to his last year in Green Bay. Nothing has gone right for Aaron Rodgers or the way that he thought it should down the stretch of his career. And frankly, I think a lot of it has to do with, look, it's the limitations we are seeing that are sinking in with age with Aaron Rodgers. And I talked about this last week. You know, the show where we talked about why are they not able to unlock DK Metcalf to the fullest extent that they thought that they could. And a lot of that has to do with, deeper developing routes, Aaron Rodgers holding on to the football, feeling protected, not wanting to get rid of the football in 2 seconds time. Look, even the Roman Wilson throw, which he mentioned himself. It was interesting. He's talking about a sideline throw where he missed Wilson pretty badly. But at the time that it occurred, I remember people watching it and looking on social media. They're saying Roman Wilson ran the wrong route. He should have squeezed the sideline. He didn't. He faded inside, and ultimately it was a Roman Wilson problem. Sounds like it wasn't. It sounds like it was an Aaron problem, but it wasn't an Aaron problem. It was a wind problem. The wind caused the pass to go where it went ultimately when he threw it. I don't know what other excuses to make here. I don't think this is all an Aaron Rodgers problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think coming into this season, the Steelers said, this is it. We're going to stack everything on this season. We're going to trade George Pickens for less than we probably should have traded him for. We're going to pay DK Metcalf for, much more than we probably should have paid DK Metcalf. We're going to slide in as many veterans as possible. We're even going to engineer our draft in a way that it's a win now scenario for us with the with the Steelers. And it has not come together the way that the Steelers ultimately thought that it would. And, it's sad to see this is how it's really unfolding for Aaron Rodgers. But again, I think this was what we saw the echoes of with the Jets. Even when he became healthy in 2024, he had that spate of, games where you thought, okay, he looks at least above average. Is there still something there to be had? I don't think that there is. And I agree with you, Andrew. I think what we're seeing is the flame is slowly going out, and the Steelers are probably looking at a total, and when I say total, a total rebuild going into the 2026 season.
It almost has to be. There was a time yesterday during that game, and in the fourth quarter, there was 14:08 left. The Bills scored. I think Josh Allen was pushed into the end zone to put them up 26-7, I believe. At that moment, after almost 46 minutes of football, the Pittsburgh Steelers had 90 yards of offense, 45 passing, 45 rushing. Their offense is bad. I don't think Arthur Smith is covering himself in glory. I don't think their scheme is very smart. I mean, you can't, in the NFL in 2025, you can't just keep running 3 tight ends out there every single play and having your quarterback check down to them all the time and expect good things to happen. Unless you're just one of those teams that can line up and beat the heck out of the other team off the ball and run for 5 yards of carry. But the Steelers can't do that either. And you know what? The defense isn't very good. I mean, like the
that's
Bills,
why you can't do it, Frank. Because your defense isn't stopping anybody.
Right. There's just nothing about the Steelers team fits. And honestly, I think the worst thing to happen to the Steelers team was that the Baltimore Ravens started 1-5, because all of a sudden we were like, oh my goodness, the Steelers are up, 4 games in the division. They're going to win this division. The Ravens are dead. And it's like, no, the Steelers aren't very good, and the Ravens are probably going to track them down, even though the Ravens aren't very good either, I guess. So it's like, all of a sudden, this looks on Mike Tomlin like you just blew this. You had a 4-game lead in the division. How can you not close the door? And one of the worst divisions we've seen in a long time. And I think that's why there's this renewed fire Tomlin stuff. And I do start to wonder. I mean, at some point, you do got to turn the page if you're Pittsburgh. And I've fought against it and said, whoever the Steelers hire next is probably not going to be as good as Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has a Hall of Fame resume. Go look at it. It's very, very impressive. But this isn't working. They need to do something else. Like, they are just constantly mediocre, and bringing in a quarterback who turns 42 years old this week and expecting him to be basically the second quarterback of his age ever to be effective in the NFL. He's been pretty good for his age, honestly, but this was always the end game. Like, to expect something different out of Aaron Rodgers was just not realistic.
And look, it's across the organization. Let's be real here. You have the highest paid defense in the NFL looking the way that it looks, right? You draft Caleb Johnson, right? It's like, oh, it's a beautiful fit. It's perfect. He's going to go in. He's going to, chew yards up in this zone scheme. What? Like, what happened to that draft pick? You're at the deadline. Yeah. You're trying in vain to add a number 2 wide receiver. Well, you kind of had the number 2 wide receiver who's a 1A now in Dallas, who's producing. And look, at the time I said, hey, I got it. I get it. All I've heard for years is what a problem child George Pickens is. You don't want to pay him. And, you don't want to pay him. And, hey, he's just a constant, babysitter situation. You got to always have somebody there. Okay, I hear all that, but why is he functional in Dallas? Why is he a star in Dallas of all places? Not exactly the last bastion of, hey, we keep everybody on lockdown and we make sure no guys do anything in our organization. And we're always on our P's and Q's and nobody can get away with anything. And I think there were mistakes made across the entire organization, and that's how the Steelers ultimately ended up where they are.
Could I ask you something real quick? You said a complete rebuild in 2026, and I don't disagree. Does that include Tomlin or not, do you think?
Listen,
it's hard.
I respect Mike Tomlin. I respect Mike Tomlin, right? I respect him. I respect that he's won a Super Bowl there. I respect all the years he's gone without a losing season. I get all that. But I also remember when, and I honestly think it could work out this way. I remember when the Philadelphia Eagles said to Andy Reid, it's just kind of gone stale, man. It's been a great run. We've done a lot of good things here. You've been a great coach. We really respect your coaching acumen, but it just can't keep being the same message over and over. And eventually it stops working, and we just can't keep throwing into the abyss and not getting something in return. I could see these two parting company and Mike Tomlin going somewhere else and being absolutely effective, a great coach elsewhere. And I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers starting fresh and trying to turn it over and go elsewhere and kind of change the direction of that franchise for only the third time, between Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. I guess the fourth time in 40 plus years, you start to look beyond the organization to find the next coach of your next 20 years, which seems to be every time they make a hire. But that puts a lot of pressure, by the way, on that front office to replicate what's been done over the last 40 years in terms of coaching hires.
I think there are a couple of things here. We all know this, and we've heard this from plenty of people, and we're going to say this countless times between now and, say, the end of January. There is no head coaching candidate for this next cycle that's out there that teams are going to fight over. There's no Ben Johnson coming up in this cycle. Mike Tomlin would be that guy. If the Steelers and Mike Tomlin decided we're going to move on, we're going to finally break up after 20 years, we're going to go in different directions. If Mike Tomlin wanted to coach again next season somewhere else, that is the guy that teams will fight over. Well, that is the guy that owners would go, hey, maybe I do fire the guy I have in my building because I can go get Mike Tomlin.
And I would say, even if there's a pause, right? Like, I thought when Mike Vrabel was fired in Tennessee, I told everyone he's going to be at the top of every list. Like, he's going to be the instant hot candidate.
Well,
but he wasn't. He wasn't. Even it was funny because even to the point where you started to hear from people close to Mike, like, he instead of sitting out of your, Mike's thinking about maybe being the defensive coordinator for like the Giants. And I'm like, is he insane? Like, he's not a coordinator. He can't go back to that. Like, what the hell is he talking about? Even if there's a pause, I think if you're an owner, you have to look at the Mike Vrabel situation in New England and go, there's something here. There's a basis here. There's a foundation here in terms of this coach and what he brings to the table, what he believes in the culture he can instill, that's worth going over and our staff and saying, okay, maybe we don't know if we have the guy. Maybe we have somebody that, do we want to stretch one more year and see, or do we just want to go ahead and make this move now and fire the coach we have to ultimately get to Mike Tomlin? I thought Vrabel was worth that when he was let go by the Tennessee Titans. I think that Mike Tomlin would be worth that if he were to part company with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But even if there's a gap year, I still think owners would have to look at Mike Vrabel and say, where there's substance, decades-long substance, there's substance, period.
Tomlin, and I don't think they're going to fire him. I don't think the Rooneys are ever going to bring themselves to fire him. The last how many ever years there are always the December columns in the Pittsburgh papers and online saying, hey, guys, this is it. Look how mediocre this team is down the stretch, or they're one and done and they're 9-8 or 10-7 and they're getting in, but they're one and done and they've never won a playoff game with TJ Watt. Why are you accepting this mediocrity, right? Move on. Then the Rooneys don't do it. So I think it would have to be Tomlin saying, we did it with Rodgers. We tried. You know what? I'm just going to finally take a step back. But hearing, and it wasn't that loud, it wasn't the entire stadium, hearing Acrisure in a national window game, a big CBS doubleheader game with Nance and Romo and everybody watching, chanting, fire Tomlin, even if it was only 20% of the crowd or 10% of the crowd, that was different. They will write a book, or rather, when they write the book about Tomlin and this era one day, last night will be a significant chapter in that book. They booed Renegade last night. Well, they should have. It's a bad song. I never understood the whole Renegade thing. It's an overrated bad song, and I don't get the tradition. Like, big deal. This, like, the first time I heard it, I went, this is the thing I've been hearing about so long? What's the big deal? So they booed Renegade last night. That tells you everything. I don't think it's over yet, but that expensive defense goes for the kill shot, tries to tackle the ball, end up not tackling anybody. Patrick Queen, by the way, what are you doing? Josh Allen sliding. How did you get away with not having a flag on that play? Come on, dude. We see it every week. Just stop it. Madison, do we have time for the Browns here? What do you think? This is live producing here right now on Inside Coverage. Let's do the Browns. Okay. I was at that one. It was one of those odd, let's go to scoregami. What's 26-8 score? The headline will be Shedeur Sanders is going to start again next week against Tennessee. Fine. He did fine. He threw a touchdown to Harold Fannin. They didn't really stretch the field. Noted sideline interaction there with Jerry Jeudy. Shedeur really isn't the story in this game. The story is the Browns defense stood on its head yet again, but doesn't get help from, this week, the special teams. The Niners scoring drives were 16, 18, and 32 yards. 16, 18, and 32 yards. And 2 of those short fields came from horrible special teams mistakes. There was another special teams mistake that put the ball on the 5 on a kickoff as opposed to the 40 on a kickoff. Just inexcusable. And it's the 3rd game this year. You could argue the Browns lost specifically because of special teams. They bottled up Christian McCaffrey for most of the day, yet the Niners, to their credit, on a short week with a cross-country flight, find a way to win it. They go to 9-4, and they deserve their flowers. There was a moment in the game, however, in the second half when Malik Collins, the Browns defensive tackle who has put together a career year, he's a former Niner, great season, blew his quad out. He is now done for the year. He was down on the field, and you see pushing and shoving and finger pointing and jawing, and I'm up in the booth, turn to my partner, Nathan. I'm like, what is that? And we look at the replay. We can't figure out what happened. Was there a cheap shot? We don't know. Afterwards, Shelby Harris, the Browns veteran defensive tackle, gave this explanation.
He's a hoe, and I want that known. I see why he got punched in the nuts, because that's he says some things that you should not say to another man ever, but I don't respect it because you say that, then run behind your O-line. That's some real soft, and I want that known. I see exactly why they punched the nuts. I'm surprised nobody punched him in the jaw yet.
And scene. Talking about Juwan Jennings, who was punched in the groin Monday Night Football by Trevon Merring, and Merring was the one who got suspended for punching him below the belt, not Juwan Jennings. Guys, I have been trying to find out what it was that was said. Myles Garrett said what Jennings said on the field was demeaning, and you don't say that to another human being. I don't know that I've ever heard somebody go after another guy like that in the locker room like Shelby Harris did.
It's definitely yeah. I mean, look, are we going to speculate on what exactly he said?
You go for it. Have fun.
Do we, how many bleeps do we have?
I don't know. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans yesterday was pretty explicit as to what was said to him on the field. We don't need to lay that one out. I mean, that was wow. Yeah. Anyway, so there's the Shedeur angle as well. He's going to start next week. Shedeur, Cam Ward. I mean, that'll be fun, Charles.
Actually, yeah, that actually is. I am mildly interested in that game because when they put the schedule out in the offseason, I said, hey, by this point, okay, yeah, Shedeur was drafted in the 5th round, but by this point, there's a chance that Shedeur could be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and Cam Ward should be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. And obviously, in the run-up to the draft, right up until draft day, all we did was say, Shedeur versus Cam, which guy's better? We talked about, it's going to be the picks are going to be 1-2. It's going to be Cam and then Shedeur. That ultimately didn't pan out the way any of us thought, and it launched us all on this odyssey that we've been on this season, particularly with the Browns and Shedeur Sanders. But I do think it's interesting seeing these two guys now go up against each other as rookie quarterbacks. And look, I'll say between the two, the one I'm most afraid for is not Shedeur Sanders. It's Cam Ward. Cam Ward has the way he's getting sacked this season it's unreal. And I will say something else about Cam that I've learned this season that I did not know about him up until this point. He's freaking tough. The amount of punishment he has taken behind that line with the Tennessee Titans and not breaking at this point is staggering to me. I hope we do not get to the point where it's a David Carr situation with the Houston Texans where we see him shell-shocked moving into the future years of his career because he's been hit so many times as a rookie. But for Myles Garrett, who, by the way, is really the true Cleveland Browns story this season, who should break the all-time single-season sack record, who I think could approach 30 sacks by the end of the season. This is a game where Myles Garrett, if you're not devoting 1, 2, 2.5, 3 players per snap. Yeah, if you're not cheating to stop Myles Garrett in this game, he could have 5, 6. Could he potentially, threaten the single game sack record in NFL history? Yeah, it's possible. He could have 7. He could have 8. Who knows? Against this Tennessee Titans offensive line, which has been one of the worst units in the NFL this season. I am worried about, how Cam Ward is going to function in this game. And I hope, interim head coach Mike McCoy is saying this entire game on offense, we're moving the pocket, we're running the football, we're doing whatever we can to get Cam Ward away from Myles Garrett, because we do not need him getting destroyed by what is clearly the best defensive player in the NFL, not only this year, but probably over the expanse of the last several years.
Yeah, the move he put on Trent Williams, might be the greatest offensive tackle of all time. Like, really, seriously,
he got one on Trent. Yep.
Oh my goodness! Like, you're stunned that Myles. Yeah. It was like an Allen Iverson crossover. Like, it was like he just put him on. I was like, I couldn't believe that move by Myles Garrett. Real quick from that game was terrible. Titans Browns is going to be terrible. The 2 worst offenses in the NFL. I love you guys trying to talk it up. The one thing from that game, Kyle Shanahan's your NFL Coach of the Year, guys. Like, he is doing unbelievable work this year. He is 9-4, dealing with as many injuries as key injuries. As obviously everything. Like, they've missed Purdy, they've missed Kittle, they've missed Ayuk, they've missed Juwan Jennings, they've missed Pearsall, they've missed Bosa, they've missed Warner.
The entire defense.
9-4. Kyle Shanahan's doing an unbelievable job. And I'm going to keep pushing this. It shouldn't just be hey, this guy is on his first year on the job and he turned the team around. Good for that. Kyle Shanahan's your Coach of the Year. I will die on that. I think Ben
Johnson is in the chat
after the defections. After the entire offseason,
after the defections, they lost 10 guys this year who got paid more than $10 million per year to other teams. Like, this is unbelievable work by Kyle Shanahan, and he deserves a spot.
Malik Collins, one of them, who got hurt yesterday. But preparing for this game, remember, Nick I was looking at it. Fred Warner's out, Nick Bosa's out, first-round pick Micah Williams is out. That defense used to be a veritable who's who. It's now a veritable who's he. You go through that defensive too deep, and you're like, you, the three of us, we know the league, but the names are all gone. They are all gone. And other than, I don't know, Diamador Lenore, maybe Jair Brown, how many of the guys right now on the 49ers, with all their injuries on that defense, would start on another team? Not that many.
Robert Saleh doing work.
Not that many at all.
Robert Saleh. Oh, man, is he been good too.
They were down to their third middle linebacker yesterday in Curtis Robinson. Their third. So, he deserves all kinds of consideration for Coach of the Year. Coming up, we are contractually obligated to tell you how well the Dallas Cowboys played on Thursday night. We will do that straight ahead on Inside Coverage. So a funny thing happened in the middle game on Thanksgiving. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and in the span of 5 days, they beat both teams from last year's Super Bowl. As we sit here on Inside Coverage, look at the scoreboard there, 31-28 back on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys are 6-5-1. They are 3-4-1 in the NFC, and they are currently the 9 seed in the NFC. Now, I don't think they're going to catch the Eagles. They're not going to do that in the NFC East. But if they find a way, they get another Thursday night game this week, guys. They go into Detroit, and they face a banged-up Lions team. And as we do this show, we find out that Terrion Arnold is going to get shut down for the season. That news is breaking. He needs season-ending shoulder surgery in Detroit. If they could go in there and beat the Lions, who also lost in the early game on Thanksgiving, Then it's the Vikings, the Chargers. It's at Washington on Christmas. It's the Giants in Week 18. It is not an easy schedule, but the Dak Prescott that I saw, the offense that I saw, the improved defense since the Quinnen Williams trade that we have all seen, the Dallas Cowboys are doing what Jerry Jones has always said he wants, and that is be in the conversation, not only for the postseason, but more importantly, just be relevant and have people talking about you, because that's good for business, and they are good for business, and they're going to be in it until Week 18, Charles. They are good enough with Dak Prescott to be part of this conversation, to threaten all the way to the end. I think there's a path for them to get in. I still think it's a long shot, but they have a decent chance.
I'm never we're never supposed to root for teams, right? But we root for chaos, for the fun.
You're rooting for Shoddy?
I'm rooting for the storylines, right? I'm rooting for, honestly, a Dallas Cowboys team that after the death of Marshawn Kneeland, I thought that's it for this organization. It's too much. Like, there's just too much. The losses, the defense being in the state that it ultimately was. And now you have this very emotional thing that happens, at the core of your organization. And never at that point did I think this could be a galvanizing moment for this team, where you stop thinking about all the negativity that's happening from a football standpoint, and you start thinking about the human beings that you're walking into a locker room with. And sometimes how tragedy can bring you closer together rather than push you further apart. And yet that feels like that's what's ultimately had with the Dallas Cowboys. And now watching them play football since then, it's been a joy. It's been remarkable in many ways. And I think Quinnen Williams is a huge piece of that. I tip my cap to Jerry Jones for a move that at the time you're like, what are you doing? You're spending money into a void. You're making a trade at a point where you can't turn your season around. I remember when Troy Aikman said it on national TV, and I believed maybe you should cancel any trades that you have aligned for this team, because you're not going to fix this situation. And yet now I'm sitting here staring at the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm thinking about the three of us when we started this show. What did we say? We don't know who the good teams are. We don't know who's the Super Bowl winning team here. We don't know.
But I don't want to face them right now.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know who is going to grab that momentum right now in December and ride it into January and maybe do something completely unexpected. Do I think the Dallas Cowboys could do that? I do. Because I stare now at a defense that's going to get Trayvon Diggs is coming back, right? DeMarvion Overshown, a net addition, no question. Quinnen Williams, a net addition, no question. Kenny Clark. It's all of these pieces now. When I watch them play defense, I'm like, this just suddenly looks different. Everything looks threatening now on the other side of the ball for the Dallas Cowboys. It's not just the offense. It's now the defense as well. And then when I think about the offense, George Pickens is their number one receiver, with all due respect to CeeDee Lamb, who is a great player. Somehow George Pickens, who is by far one of the best offseason acquisitions, Jerry Jones as a general manager is looking pretty good right now. We're going to have that conversation that Jerry Jones as the GM, obviously along with Stephen Jones, has made some really, really good moves, and the team is galvanized. It's playing together. It has a brand of momentum that I think is really scary right now. And the first thing I thought after the Detroit Lions lost to the Green Bay Packers, I was like, now you got to face Dallas, which is thinking like a month ago. I would have never thought, now you got to face Dallas. Right, yeah. That's crazy. Right. Yeah, no, I think Detroit should be nervous about what the Dallas Cowboys are bringing to the table in this Thursday night game. And I think if Dallas beats Detroit, people need to start talking about, if you're an NFC team, you don't want Dallas to make the playoffs. If you're an NFC team getting one of those seeds, you have to be clasping your hands together and saying, please don't let the Cowboys get one of these wild card seeds, because they are going to be a problem.
I think that there's two ways to look at this. I definitely agree with the last point. But first, let's talk about, can they make the playoffs? I don't think they're winning the NFC East. We've seen the Eagles collapse before 2 years ago. It's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. So let's start going through the wild card. You got either the Packers or Bears, and either the Saints or the Seahawks or Rams. The second place team in those divisions is going to make it. We know that, right? That leaves one spot. We still have the Lions to talk about. We still have the 49ers to talk about, and even the Panthers to talk about. That is 6 teams ahead of the Cowboys in the pecking order for these wildcard spots. It's hard to find the path there.
Bad
but
math.
The second part of this is, are they playing like a playoff team? You have to say yes. You absolutely, the last couple of weeks, have to say yes. Quinnen Williams has made a huge difference, which he should. You traded a first and second round pick for him. I will say, maybe if you had Micah Parsons all year, you wouldn't have dug that hole and you wouldn't have been behind 6 teams in a wild card race. But regardless, Cowboys are playing good football. And I absolutely agree, Charles. The NFC teams, if you're one of those division winners, you're like, oh, yeah, we don't really want to face the Cowboys because Dak is playing out of his mind. They have 2 number 1 receivers, which most teams don't have. The Bengals are one of the rare teams that do.
Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams has had a season out of nowhere. Give Jerry some credit. I've ripped him for the Micah thing, and I still think they might be better off this year. They have Micah the whole season, but Javonte was a smash hit. Pickens was a smash hit. They paid up for Quinnen Williams, but he's playing really well. They've made some really, really nice moves, and yeah, they're one of the better teams in the NFC right now, probably. But the path to get to the playoffs is so hard. You almost have to win out and then still hope for a little bit of help. Like, that's how tough it is for the Cowboys math-wise right now.
Yeah, it's a math problem, and it's bad math. But that game on Thursday in Detroit, Cowboys and Lions, is huge. Appointment television. It's huge. All right, we're going really long today, so I apologize, Madison. Let's squeeze one more thing in before we go, okay? Charles Robinson, you are up first. One more thing from Week 13.
Yeah, we talked about Ben Johnson, the Chicago Bears, earlier in the show, and, stripping the shirt off and, what's going on there. When it happened, I actually had the sound off on my TV, and I'm thinking, what the hell is Ben Johnson doing? And then I was thinking, hey, man, he's in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and hear. By the way, not a hot dog physique, I will say. I can attest that is not a hot dog physique. He does not look like a guy who's had a lot of dogs.
This was the right time to do it because he doesn't have much time for the weight room anymore these days as the head coach of a football team. Like, everything is on his plate, including hot dogs, evidently, coming up soon. So he figured, let me rip my shirt off now, get this thing out of the way, because if we have to do this later in the year or maybe next year, I won't have that bod. So let's do it. Frank, one more thing.
Last night watching the game, the Broncos Commanders, obviously, all of a sudden, a lot of people, I'm sure, around the country were like, Treylon Burks, he's still in the league, and he made one of the great catches of this season or any other season, really. Unreal. It's not Odell Beckham. Let's not go that far, okay? We don't need to compare everything to Odell Beckham. But, oh, man, it was great. Whether it was Odell or not, it was great. Riley Moss is draped all over him. Treylon Burks reaches back one-handed. Great catch in the end zone. Only his second career touchdown. And I just like stories like this because the story of Treylon Burks' career is really not a fun one for him. He's always going to be the guy who A.J. Brown, that was the pick that they got back in return, and that's who they drafted practically to be an A.J. Brown replacement. He was never that in Tennessee. Ton of issues, ton of injuries, never worked out there even close. Like I said, just one touchdown with them in his career. And he's kind of one of those guys you figure would fade out of the league. And I think it even, like, I had to remember, Treylon Burks is with Washington. He's just there because they had a ton of injuries. Played well last night and had one of the highlight catches of, again, this or any other season. So just hats off to Treylon Burks. Not everybody's path in the NFL is easy. Even if you're a first-round pick, sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes you just never get there. Sometimes just due to bad luck, due to bad injuries, bad situations, not being used the right way. But Treylon Burks can always look back and say, yeah, look at that play. I made it. I did
soft
that.
Cast. With a soft cast.
Just a great, unbelievable effort. So I just hats off to Treylon Burks for just sticking to it, perseverance. It sucks. It sucks to be a guy who's labeled as a first round bust, but those guys can still play too. And he showed it yesterday on that one play. Just marvelous play. Standing ovation for that one.
Yeah, it was one of those catches where wherever you were and with whomever you were watching, you screamed like, "Oh my God!"
Yep.
And I apologize to everybody on the 5th floor of my hotel last night in Cleveland because I was one of those people as well.
Mike
There's
Tirico.
A bar downstairs.
Great call.
You could hear everyone screaming there as well. It was one of those, and Tirico and Collinsworth had the same reaction.
Great call.
Bram Weinstein and his Washington radio crew had the same reaction. Heard that highlight on the way to the airport this morning. It was one of those wow moments. A little under the radar, my one more thing, Devon Hamilton, the former Buckeye, the big defensive tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has been the backup long snapper for a long time. Like every team has to have that in case of emergency. Call this guy long snapper on the roster. He's a 325-pound defensive tackle, and there was a moment yesterday, actually 3 or 4 of them, where the Jaguars were without their long snapper, and Devon Hamilton, 325 pounds, went in there and handled the job perfectly. On punts, on place kicks, he did it. He said he's been training for years for this moment. He got the call. He answered the call. That's pretty cool because most teams, honestly, that happens, it's disaster.
Oh, that's a circus. Yep.
Disaster. But you had a 325-pound defensive tackle answer the bell, and get the ball back to his specialists when needed. We're going to answer the bell and go, we're running late. We thank you for listening and watching this episode of Inside Coverage at Yahoo. For Charles Robinson and for Frank Schwab, my name is Andrew Siciliano. We will talk to you on Tuesday.